What if you could map out your entire month's schedule of 30 days of high impact posts, videos, and emails in just under 90 minutes? That's not wishful thinking. That's exactly how the top 1% of creators and businesses build unstoppable content engines. This is the very same thing that brands like Dan Co and Ali Abdaal uses. While their content might look like they're just providing value or educating in general, there is a solid strategy that they use to come up with an idea, how each idea takes shape on different platforms, and how they link to each other in a way that they actually build an ecosystem. And we're giving it all away for free in this video, along with an actual free template, basically a content engine that you can use. I'm Akash Damodaran, founder of Unimedia, and over the last 4 years, we have extensively studied these tactics and implemented these strategies for enterprise clients like Sennheiser, Google, Intuit, as well as over 15 seven-figure personal brands to build a sustainable content engine that reliably turns ideas into months and months worth of targeted, also revenue-driving content, all without endless brainstorming sessions. One such client was WaterAid, one of the biggest NGOs on earth, who we helped secure a funding of $1.8 million, all because we focused on their content strategy and came up with the entire content campaign in just one sitting. Today, I'll show you the exact blueprint so that you and your business can build your 30-day content engine in just under 90 minutes. Before we get started though, grab your free Media Machine Starter Pack, which is basically a 30-day content calendar and engine blueprint to get started right away with what I'm talking about here. I'll actually be walking you through this in depth a little later in the video using the exact same template. So comment Starter Pack below and I'll send it over for you to use. Now, before I show you what's under the hood, let me bust one of the biggest myths out there. Like, most people think content success looks like this. Have random posts or follow trends and then hope for a viral hit and then maybe make money in the process. You know, they're counting on brands, they're counting on partnerships, they're counting on sponsorship deals, and they're just constantly trying to get someone's attention with the hopes that their product or services will sell. But here's the truth. Virality burns out creators and brands. You know, I kind of mentioned this in one of my previous videos too. It leaves you chasing trends and chasing views and constantly feeling like you're starting from scratch. What actually works is a system, one that takes a single idea and turns it into a pipeline of videos, posts, and newsletters, as well as revenue, all on autopilot. And here's what we have consistently proven with all of our clients, as well as my own personal brand. You don't need endless brainstorming sessions. You definitely don't need to chase virality. What you need is a repeatable engine that reliably turns ideas into targeted revenue-driving content. And so let's focus on the core problem here. Most businesses and personal brands don't fail because they're bad at content. They fail because they're stuck in one of the two traps. Trap one is, I don't know what to post. This is the classic idea drought. You sit down to plan next week and the page is blank. You don't know what to say, or worse, you recycle the same old stuff or look at what the current trends are and hope it capitalizes and goes viral. And an extension to this is basically just trying to wing it. You know, maybe the first thought that comes into my mind, I'm just going to try and package it up into content and hope that it goes viral. And trap number two is, I'm overwhelmed with these different platforms. This is basically execution chaos. You're juggling YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, newsletters, and every time you think you've got one figured out, another platform changes their rules. And I think this is where CEOs, CMOs, founders, and even personal brands lose weeks of productivity, and entire marketing teams are paralyzed, spinning their wheels, or worse, just posting random content just to stay active because they're trying to feed the algorithm. But here's the problem with random content. Like, random posting means no consistency, and it's also algorithm confusion. And when the algorithm is confused about who you're speaking to, you basically build a confused audience. And that's why you'll see brands with 50,000 followers and 100,000 followers as well, and barely either any engagement, or they're just not making money from it. All because they've been serving up random disconnected posts for months, and now their audience doesn't trust them or don't care, and the algorithm doesn't know who to show their content to. And I think this is the fundamental gap we need to fix. Because the truth is, consistency plus clarity is equal to compounding growth. And once you solve those two problems, basically what to post and how to streamline them across platforms, you go from chaos to building a content engine that runs almost on autopilot. And look, if this already feels overwhelming, you're not alone, because most founders and marketing teams get stuck right here. That's actually why Unimedia exists. We step in and become your personal media house. We handle everything from content strategy to support for shooting, to editing, publishing, analytics, thumbnails, performance, titles, to even full funnel mapping. So instead of your team scrambling week after week, you've got a proven system and a partner who does it all. And right now we're filling just 2 client spots this quarter. So if you're ready to start immediately, skip the call, sign up, and we'll credit you $500 off your first month. Let's next talk about the content engine mindset. I keep saying content engine, but it's really not an easy mindset to adopt. It fundamentally requires you to rethink your entire workflow, which would kind of tie into your business workflow as well, and how valuable ideas to your end customer or audience members are at the core of it all. And here's where most brands get it wrong. They treat content like a bunch of independent posts and videos. There's like one video here, one tweet there, a random newsletter that goes out every week into the void. And that's exactly why they burn out or give up eventually. Because when you're creating one-off pieces of content with no larger strategy or vision, you're basically on a hamster wheel that never stops. But here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Stop thinking in terms of posts and videos and start thinking in terms of engines and ideas. You might be wondering, what the hell does that mean? It means that instead of coming up with 30 different ideas for 30 different days, you take one good idea, one story, one problem, one journey, one client example, one insight, and you turn that into many outputs. For instance, one idea becomes a newsletter. That newsletter becomes 1 or 2 YouTube deep dives. That YouTube video breaks down into 3 to 5 short form clips for Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, whichever is the platform of your choice. And from those you pull 2 to 3 written posts or blogs for LinkedIn or Twitter. And here you can see that every piece strategically points people back to either more videos, to your newsletter, or to even your offer, your product or your service. And so that's not a random collection of posts. That is actually a content engine. And this way you have a solid workflow to upsell, cross-promote, or showcase more content to someone who's interested in this topic, or in this case, interested in your business or brand. And apart from all of this, the engine does more for you. It keeps you consistent without burning out because you're not constantly starting from scratch. You're repurposing smartly. And it trains the algorithm to know exactly who you're for. Like every video, every post, every email reinforces the same signal. Like for instance, for us, it's us telling the different algorithms, be it YouTube, LinkedIn, or Instagram, that this content is for founders, CMOs, and personal brands who want predictable growth. And this actually ties into another important piece, which is it builds compounding authority. Like when you keep showing up with clarity and consistency, you stop just being another creator or a brand, and you become the trusted voice in your space. And I think that is basically what the whole algorithm or these leaders at these different companies are basically talking about for being consistent. And the beauty of it all is that you can map out 30 days of this content in just under 90 minutes, and I'll walk you through exactly how in this session. In fact, I put together this free template, which is basically our content engine for you to plug into right now. It's called the Media Machine Starter Pack, a 30-day content calendar and engine blueprint. It's the exact tool we use at Unimedia to help clients go from, I don't know what to post, to having a month of content done in under 2 hours. It's something I've used personally myself as well. So if you haven't already, comment starter pack below and I'll send it straight to you. You'll actually need it for the next part of the video, so comment below and I'll send it over. So the step 1 in this entire template or framework is the idea generation piece. Okay, so let's actually get tactical here. We've talked about why you need a content engine. Now let's talk about how you actually fuel it. Because without good ideas, your engine is just an empty shell. And this is where most brands get stuck. They overcomplicate idea generation and they try to come up with fancy ideas or trying to pick out something that's trending. But the truth is, ideas are everywhere, but it's a matter of how you pick something that aligns with your ideal customer or audience. You just need the right system to catch them and sort them. If you're confused about where to start, then here are some cues or maybe a few questions that you could potentially ask. What are the problems your audience faces? Like, what's the number one frustration they're dealing with right now? If you're not sure, maybe check your emails, your DMs, or even customer support tickets, because they're a goldmine. You can actually find it also on Reddit threads and Facebook groups, and maybe even comments on your existing posts and videos. Second is basically an extension of the problem, which are what are the pain points? What keeps them up at night? For founders, it might be my content isn't converting into leads, and for personal brands, it could be I'm posting consistently, but nobody's buying, or I'm just not making enough money from this. Third could be FAQs. What are the frequently asked questions that the people or your audience members ask you all the time? If you've been asked the same questions 3 times, I would say that's a good video or a post waiting to happen. Next is competitor and creator patterns. Like, don't copy them. Like I mentioned earlier, the idea is not to focus on trends, but Watch what's resonating and maybe even look at what the competitors are missing out on. So if a competitor's video on, let's say, 5 marketing mistakes blew up, ask, how can you put your unique spin on it for your ICP? And is it even valuable for your ICP? And then I want you to actually tag these ideas by type. Now, once you've got this list of raw ideas, don't just dump them into a notes app. Actually tag them, because not all ideas are equal and each serves a different purpose in your funnel. And that's actually a good segue into the different parts of the funnel and how ideas tie into it. So there's the viral or top of the funnel, let's call it tofu. These are basically content pieces that cater to a broader audience segment. The idea is that we're trying to get newer audience members or newer eyeballs on our content. So think content like, why does conventional marketing fail, or why did it fail in 2024? These actually get attention and also newer eyeballs or audience members. Then we have the evergreen or value content. These are basically educational or long-term plays. They compound over time. Think tutorials, frameworks, strategy breakdowns. I would even say a video like this would kind of fall in the evergreen category. Then we have personal related content or stories. This is where you humanize your brand, like founder stories or behind the scenes or lessons learned, or basically anything that you're able to kind of strike a chord of relatability with your audience members. These basically build trust, and in that process, they end up spending more time with you or buying your product or service. Then we finally have core or bottom of the funnel content. These are basically the pieces that actually sell. You can think case studies, client wins, product deep dives, testimonials, breakdowns. And the idea is that you're focusing on such a specific topic that your ideal customer persona or profile is actually on the lookout for. And this actually gets them to convert, and you're moving them further down the funnel. And so let's take an example with Unimedia, right? Here's how this works in practice for us. We had a client whose team kept getting the same FAQs from prospects. And so instead of answering them one by one, we turned those FAQs into a YouTube video. And that one video became multiple LinkedIn threads. And those threads drove 12 qualified leads straight into their pipeline. All from questions that they were already answering anyway. And in most cases, they had to get on a call to kind of figure things out. And that's the power of smart idea generation. You're not really reinventing the wheel, you're just systematizing it. And so now that you have a bank of raw ideas, the first place we turn them into output isn't YouTube or Instagram, it's actually a newsletter. There's a reason why personal brands like Dan Co and others do this too, and I've been doing this of late as well. The main reason is because your newsletter is your owned channel. Like, there's no algorithm there, you're basically directly sending emails or posts or content to your ideal customer because they've signed up for this voluntarily. And so nobody can throttle your reach, nobody can change the rules overnight. And so if YouTube, LinkedIn or Instagram disappeared tomorrow, you'd still have a direct link to your audience through your newsletter. And beyond control, newsletters build something most brands desperately need but rarely focus on: loyalty and trust. Think about it, right? Like, when someone gives you their email address, there's actually some commitment there. They've raised their hand and said, I actually want to hear from you. And that's 10x warmer than a random YouTube view. And there's actually another hidden benefit. The newsletter forces you to clarify your thinking. Like, if you can distill one big idea into a clear, punchy written piece, then turning it into a video, a LinkedIn post, or even a short clip becomes infinitely easier. So let's give you another example from what we've done before. One of our most read newsletters was about what we call content traps. All the ways brands get stuck chasing vanity metrics. That single newsletter later became a YouTube deep dive video, 2 LinkedIn carousels, multiple short form clips, and even sparked a client conversation that turned into a 6-month retainer deal. That, in my opinion, is how you leverage content the right way. You start with one newsletter and it becomes the seed for your entire month's content. And the next step is, like I said, take that newsletter piece and you make it into something else. And I would say the platform that most people skip out on or don't focus on is YouTube. Okay, so like I said, you've got your newsletter. That single piece of writing isn't just one-off email, it's actually a script backbone for your YouTube long-form content. So one newsletter idea could be one 10 to 30 minute YouTube video, or in this case, like I'm doing right now, it's basically a breakdown, right? And so why does it matter? Because on YouTube, long form is the pillar. It's the anchor content your entire engine revolves around. And this is where you go deeper. And it's not just tips and tricks, but stories, frameworks, and teaching that builds real authority and trust. And think about it, right? Like short form might earn you quick attention, but long form makes people actually stick around. And that's how you build relationships at scale. And another big benefit of doing this is because you're kind of taking the idea of a YouTube video from your newsletter. Eventually, when you start publishing your newsletter, you can actually point them back to your YouTube video, which becomes like an easy way for you to recommend suggested videos. So let me give you an example from my own personal life. Back when I was running my video podcast, I had no ads, no gimmicks, just consistent long form episodes. That podcast climbed into the top 2% globally, and clients started reaching out to me directly because they'd already spent hours with me through that content. I didn't have to convince them because they already trusted me. And that's exactly what your YouTube long form becomes. It's your digital keynote, it's your classroom, it's your sales call that works while you sleep. And the beauty is you don't need to come up with 30 new ideas for 30 different videos. And in this case, with my podcast, what ended up happening was because it was truly long form, they were spending time with understanding the quality of our podcasts, but also in that process, they got to know me because I was the face of the brand, or I was the face of the podcast, right? And so there was also inherently some trust that was built with me. And when people eventually reached out to me where they needed help with their podcast, it was like they already kind of knew me. So a lot of the messages that I received and a lot of the initial calls I got on, they were already sold because they'd seen my podcast being published time and again. So the point I'm trying to make is there are very few platforms on earth where one, it's free, YouTube's completely free, but at the same time, it's a truly long form platform and you can spend time with the person, and that's the same thing you're doing here right now if you're watching this video. And so you just need one strong newsletter idea, or that could be any idea, and that becomes one strong video. And that video becomes the hub your short form clips, posts, and CTAs all point back to. Because at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is build that ecosystem I mentioned. And so if someone finds your personal brand or your business from any platform, the concept is that we're trying to take them from that platform to YouTube ideally, because then they get to spend more time with us, and in that process, there's trust and loyalty, and then we eventually upsell them to our newsletter. And so the best way to get started with this is the Media Machine Starter Pack. I've actually mapped out exactly how to turn your newsletter into a long form video blueprint. So this helps because you're never staring at a blank script anymore. So comment Starter Pack below and I'll send it straight to you. The next step is taking that long form piece and putting it into written posts. And so now once you've got that YouTube long form video done, you don't let it just sit there and hope for views. That one video can easily power dozens of written posts across different platforms. And you might be wondering, that's easy to say because it's a long form sit down kind of session on YouTube, right? So one way to do this, take the key insights or frameworks from your video and you slice them into different written posts. This could be LinkedIn posts, it could be Twitter threads. You're doing this because the decision makers and B2B and even B2C buyers are all looking for these small insights or micro value based insight posts. And so the way you can kind of get there is by breaking up this long framework or this long email or this long YouTube video that you have into one tiny written post. And then you expand one of your frameworks into maybe a Twitter thread, short, punchy, and shareable for people who like ideas in, let's say, snack-sized bites. Or you could just extract a core takeaway, a few core takeaways, and turn it into an Instagram caption. It's perfect for the audiences who prefer scrolling over watching, let's say, a 20-minute video. And again, the idea is that we're trying to convince them in numerous different ways for them to spend even more time with us, and so that way we can eventually upsell them to our long form video on YouTube. So in that process, each of these posts become a micro learning or one quick digestible piece of value. And this matters because not everyone learns the same way. So some people want to watch, some people prefer to read, and by publishing across formats, you're not creating more work, you're basically meeting your audience where they already hang out. And this is another key mindset shift. You're not making new content anymore, you're basically reframing the same idea in the format that fits the platform and in turn fits the ideal audience on that platform. And that is how you attract new people who prefer reading while still deepening the trust built through your long form video on YouTube. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, the same things apply to short form video as well. Because once you've got that YouTube video done, you've got dozens of short form clips just sitting there waiting to be pulled out. Now, you could technically extract some pieces from these videos, but what we've noticed that really works well is you take the same concept and you maybe add the right hook to it, add the right punchy initial piece to it, and try to have an arc to each of these short form videos. And that way, you actually have dozens of ideas coming from the same core idea, and that way you reach a massive audience across different platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and even LinkedIn videos for that matter. And again, like with short form, it's basically a discovery engine, just like written posts. It's how new people stumble across you while scrolling, because one thing you need to keep in mind is that with long form videos on YouTube, you get to pick which video you want to watch. So for instance, you're kind of going through a feed and you get to see a title and a thumbnail, and then you decide, hey, I want to actually spend time on this video. But with short form content, what you might have realized is it's basically just a scrollable vertical feed, and the algorithm is actually deciding on your behalf whether you should be watching the next video or not, or which video to serve you in this case. And so the big nuance here is that the algorithms work differently, and so it's a very good place for you to be discovered. But short form clips are not where the real relationship is built. They're like billboards on the highway. So if someone sees you for 10 seconds, gets intrigued, and then thinks, maybe I want to learn a little bit more about this, and that's when they click through to your other videos, maybe the YouTube video, and eventually your newsletter, or even your offer, which could be a product or service. And when you have structured your system properly, every clip is not just random entertainment, but a strategic ramp that points people back into your ecosystem. And I think this is how you stop chasing the algorithm and instead use it to funnel the right people exactly where you want them. And finally, I think the most important part, let's talk about how do we make money, which ties into leads and revenue. Every single piece of content you publish should have just one job: to move someone closer to becoming a customer. I know that doesn't mean hard selling in every post, it means giving people a natural next step. And so here are the 3 CTA options we use across every client. There's obviously the lead magnet. This is where you offer free value in exchange for trust. For example, in our case, it's the Media Machine Starter Pack. So you've probably heard me mention it a few times already, because it's the exact blueprint that shows you how to turn one idea into 30 days of content. And if you want it, just comment Starter Pack below. And basically that was the lead magnet. The second could be CTAs to our services. But again, it's important to know where to kind of sprinkle these CTAs to services, because people are not just going to end up buying. And so in our case, we sprinkle some of these CTAs into these videos because at the end of the day, these are long form breakdown sessions. And so over the course of watching a few videos, they might actually understand that we have the expertise. And so for people who want the done for you path, we become their personal media house. We handle strategy, shooting, support, editing, publishing, analytics, titles, thumbnails, everything. And like I said earlier, right now we're opening just 2 more client spots. And so if you're interested, you can click on the link in the description and reach out to us. That was basically a CTA to our services. But I would say the most important one is basically another piece of content. This could be another video, it could be a short form video, it could be a post, it could also be the newsletter. But sometimes the next step isn't a sale, and I would say the ideal thing would be to build more trust. That's why we link to other videos. Like for instance, we're talking a lot about going viral. So we had published a video earlier that speaks about why going viral could kill your brand. So once you're done with watching this video, maybe check out that video next. So yeah, so this way the algorithm keeps them in our world. And when you tie these CTAs together, what happens is simple. There's an idea, and then we figure out the different distribution tactics. And from there, we have different CTAs like we mentioned. And eventually, this all leads back to conversion. And that's basically the cycle. And once it's in place, your content engine doesn't just build authority, it drives leads, revenue, and real business growth. This actually ties back to how the content engine becomes a flywheel. Alright, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. Just to recap, here's what the content engine flywheel looks like. It starts with one idea, that idea becomes a newsletter, that newsletter feeds a YouTube long form video, that video splinters into LinkedIn posts, Twitter threads, and captions, and from there you get short form clips, reels, shorts, TikToks, and from there every single piece needs to end with a CTA. And the CTA could be basically getting them to consume more of your content. It could be other videos, it could be posts, it could also be a free lead magnet, or a call, or a service like what we have kind of mentioned here in our videos. And eventually those CTAs add up and they drive sales and clients. And once you have sales and clients, you're basically going to use that to come up with new ideas to feed right back into the system. And that's basically the flywheel. You could talk about customer testimonials there. You could talk about the pain points that your new customers have faced. You could even talk about the kind of transformation that your client has gone through. And so from just 90 minutes of planning, you unlock 30 days of content. And we're not just talking about vanity metrics anymore. What we're talking about is something that actually builds trust, drives sales, and actually grows your brand in the process. And the best part, you're no longer guessing. You're no longer waking up thinking, what should I post today? You're not just looking at what the trends are and trying to keep up with the trend, and instead you're running a predictable, repeatable pipeline, the same playbook used by the top 1% of content producers in the world. And so let me actually walk you through what the first 30 days could look like. This can be a challenge that you can take on yourself. Let's start off with week 1. Brainstorm 10 to 15 raw ideas. Don't overthink it, and instead focus on problems, FAQs, or insights your audience cares about, like I mentioned earlier. Week 2, take your top 5 and turn them into newsletters. This clarifies your thinking and gives you written assets you'll repurpose later. And as you're writing this out, you'll realize what are the non-negotiables that you need in your story, and at the same time, you can actually get an arc or a proper story and a journey to your newsletter as well. And in week 3, I want you to think about recording 2 long form videos, all based on those newsletters itself. And so these become your anchor pieces, the core of your engine. And in week 4, since you've now gone through the idea generation piece, you've gone through the newsletter, you've also come up with the YouTube videos, you'll actually know what are the core elements or the different pillars in your content idea. And so what you can do is take those ideas out and you slice them up into short form clips and written posts. And these can be repurposed across different platforms like LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Shorts. And that becomes your distribution layer. But my suggestion and our suggestion is, don't focus on just spraying across all these different platforms. Pick one short form platform, pick one written post platform, pick one long form video platform, which I don't think there's any other option than YouTube, and then actually pick a newsletter platform as well. You follow this, and in 1 month, you'll have a working content system, multiple platforms covered, and a repeatable process you can rinse and repeat every single month. And the best part is, you don't even have to build this from scratch, because it's already in the Media Machine starter pack I shared earlier. So let's actually quickly recap. Here's what I want you to take away from this session. Random posting, like we discussed, that's just noise. Systems, that is what will actually allow you to scale. And one good idea, repurposed smartly, can turn into 30 plus content pieces that don't just get views, but actually drive revenue. So if you're a business, a founder, or even a personal brand, this is how you'll never run out of content again. So here's what you do next. I've already told you to grab the Media Machine starter pack, and I've walked you through what the first month can look like. So I would recommend getting started with that right away. Alternatively, if you're at the point where you don't want to do this alone, or if you feel like your team just doesn't have the bandwidth, and if you'd rather have an entire team build and run this engine for you, that's literally what Unimedia does. We handle everything like we mentioned earlier, from strategy to shooting support, editing, publishing, analytics, titles, thumbnails on YouTube. And like I said, we're opening up just 2 client spots this quarter. And so if you skip the call and start today, you'll get $500 credited on your first month. The link is in the description. And secondly, like I mentioned earlier in the video, most people and most brands want to just go viral. But what if I said going viral could actually kill your brand or your business? And so I want you to check this one out, because I show you exactly why chasing virality destroys brands and how you can avoid the trap while still growing profitably. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you here.